All right, hey, did you know Americans stop and prevent a violent crime 1 to 3 million times per year with a gun? That's right. Studies from Florida State, the CDC, and the Crime Prevention Research Center show that guns are used to protect life 25 times more than when they are used to take a life. That's 25 times, and that estimate's kind of low. Hey, and if you believe that good people deserve the best tools to defend themselves and their families, then you should be a member of San Diego County Gun Owners. San Diego County Gun Owners makes it easy to connect with the community that's fighting to defend and restore your Second Amendment rights. Become a member today. It's only $10. Go to sdcgo.org/join and become a member.
That's right.
What's going on? Geez, I just seen you.
I know. It's like you're following me.
I know I am. I'm looking for a watch.
You're always like,
There was a lady at the KUSI this morning. She goes, yeah, I bought my husband, 5 or 6 watches.
yeah?
My wife never bought me a watch.
No.
Neither did yours.
I think no. I think we should know. I didn't really wear a watch until like a year ago.
I know.
I wore a watch when I was a kid, and it would be the ugliest, most high tech,
Yeah, and you know what she said?
What's that?
Or what he said?
What's that?
I only wear Invictus.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah,
The big guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he only wears Invictus.
Invictus are kind of interesting.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. You just wish you had one.
I do have one.
You do that.
I do. It
You
was
do?
a gift from a buddy of mine. He was an Invicta collector. So
Lucky guy.
I very, very rarely wear it.
Well, you want me to tell you when my birthday is?
Sure.
So you can send me an Invictus?
You can tell me.
I'm not going to get
When
one.
is your birthday? I've known you for like 7 years. I don't think you've had one.
You wouldn't. You don't.
I've seen you once a week for like 7 years.
Yeah, you have.
I don't remember.
And a couple times in the morning.
Yeah, I don't remember a birthday.
August the 10th.
Oh,
I'm a Leo.
it's coming up.
Be careful.
All right. I'll have to try to remember that.
You will forget.
I'm definitely going to forget.
You will totally forget.
I don't remember.
What are we talking about today? We got 2
So we
hours.
have Sharie in the studio. How are you, Sharie?
Good, how are you?
Here, you just
Fantastic.
gotta get a little closer.
We're going to talk all about your organization called RAD, it's very rad.
What's it stand for?
The RAD stands for Reactive Attachment Disorder. People think it stands for RAD,
Well, we used
super
to have
cool, but
we used to have a program called Racers Against Drugs.
yes.
And it was all trying to stop. Of course, right now everybody's into it because we're not trying to stop it like we used to.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, that's
Good.
We're going to hear all about her and it's very timely and it's a very interesting organization. And you guys are super passionate about what you're doing. I can't wait to go into detail.
Yeah.
I broke the rule. We were already having a whole conversation off the air about.
You're not supposed to do that.
I like breaking.
She must be into it because you drugged the whole family down.
Yeah. Well,
They're probably going to go have Asian food.
well, maybe.
You're going to.
I would love it. Yes. We're also going to talk about how a gun gets added to the California pistol roster, which is a first in years, basically. It used to be next to impossible. We're going to talk about why now. Why can we suddenly add pistols to the pistol roster? The safe handgun roster, which is, of course, a slow-moving de facto pistol ban. But it looks like we're having some positive effect on that. CRPA has a lawsuit against the handgun roster, and then San Diego County Gunners, we also have we're plaintiffs in a lawsuit against the roster, the Rena case. So I think that this is a clear victory that started with the Bruin case last year.
Yeah.
And we're going to see a whole lot of progress with the.
Okay. And we're going to talk about Tuesday night.
We're going to talk about Tuesday night. Yep.
Unfortunately, my well decided I didn't need any more water, and that caused me to have a heart attack, so I wasn't able to make it. But your segment on KUSI was phenomenal. It was
thank you.
Really fair. I mean, really. Because for someone I wasn't able to go, I don't really have to ask you anymore.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk all about it. What you're talking about is the La Mesa Safe Storage City Council Meeting Act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to talk all about that. What happened? What the next steps are? It's pretty interesting in that nobody's getting it right. I read the Union Tribune story. They didn't get it right. I read the East County
Gazette.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
One of those. Anyway, I read like 3 stories and none of them are getting it right. Which it's pretty interesting. It's not just a matter of, well, did they pass it or didn't they pass it? We had a positive effect. We didn't completely win, but we also didn't completely lose.
But you changed their minds midstream.
I think so.
I think that's the phenomenal part.
I think so.
Oh, well, that wasn't what we said originally.
Yeah.
No, this is what we say now.
Well, and we're going to talk about. I really want to get into detail
Yeah.
and talk about it was a weird situation.
I would have loved to have seen the look on your face. Go,
Yeah, it was.
that's not why we're here.
I know it was very strange. And then we're going to talk about the San Diego County Gun Violence Community Needs Assessment Final Report hearing,
Ooh, a hearing.
which is happening on Tuesday. There's a lot happening on this coming up Tuesday. We already went over a little bit of it, but we're going to talk about exactly what they're doing on Tuesday and what we need folks to do in response to what they're doing on Tuesday. Then, of course, we're going to ask Sam the Gunman a fantastic trivia question.
Cool.
Don't forget to get your gun prom tickets. If you haven't gotten your gun prom tickets, now is the time. We're just a couple of months. September feels like it's a far ways away. It's not. September's right around the corner.
Right.
So September 16th, we have to end ticket sales September 1st. So you really only have you don't even have 2 months. So we got to hurry up and buy your tickets. Don't miss gun prom. Alisha, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Late.
Good. Welcome.
Worth the wait.
There you go.
You have a
Fashionably.
cable? Oh, you're already plugged in? How'd that happen?
It's not on.
She's just that good. We're going to talk about Massachusetts HD 4420. Does it really make the worst state in the country does it really make it the worst state in the country for gun owners? And then, of course, we'll touch on the Magnum episode with, we had him in here, Matthias Quallenberg. Remember that guy? Yeah,
Matthias?
What did I say? Did I mispronounce it again? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he corrected me.
I know.
So embarrassed.
Now she just corrected you.
He's got way too many. He's got like way too many. First of all, there's way too many T's in there. Does he really need both T's?
I don't think so.
And then I don't know. I want to talk to Matthias, and
Is that correct?
we need to talk to him. We need to reevaluate how he spells his name.
How old is he? It's about time.
He's 40.
Time
but
for a change.
It is. It's time for I mean, this makes it particularly difficult.
His name would be great in Scrabble. You and that triple word score. It's got that Q in there and everything.
He does have a great Scrabble name. Okay, so that's it. We did about a 1 hour interview, a Magnum episode. If you go on our YouTube channel, you'll see little snippets from past shows, but then you'll also see our long form interviews, which we call our Magnum episodes, and that's dropping this week. Highly recommend it. He grew up in Germany till he was 25, and then he came to the United States, and now has guns and wears a cowboy hat, and we totally Americanized him.
Totally.
Which is awesome. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's the problem. They should have handled this problem when he was on Ellis Island, how he spells his name.
Yeah, they should have.
They should have totally Americanized it back then. We might have to do that in a retro fashion, I think, is what we'll have to do. So yeah, anyway, but again, buy your gun prom tickets. Gunprom.com, go to gunprom.com. Right now, an individual ticket is, there's an early bird special. It's only $99. Don't miss the early bird special. We just extended it, so go buy your tickets or sponsor a table. We have tables of 8 that you can sponsor. A wine table is $1,600, and it comes with wine and food and fun. And then the champagne table is $3,000, and that comes with a special gift, and it comes with raffle tickets, and it comes with champagne. So, yeah, all kinds of fun happening.
Cool.
I know, right?
All right. It's time to break? No.
Yeah, well.
Almost.
Yeah, almost time to break. So, were you on the range all day?
I was on the range all day.
Yeah.
And you're welcome. I did go home and take a quick rinse. Those ranges get hot in summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did it go? Were it students or what was going on?
It was a classroom full of CCW students, so it was all their shoot quals.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Well, there you go. Well, welcome, and thanks for showering.
Hey, if you own a gun in California, you should have an attorney that specializes in California gun laws on your speed dial. Because if you ever have legal matters that involve firearms, you need a California firearm lawyer, John Dillon, especially if you have questions about red flag laws, gun registration, gun transportation, or maybe you just need to know that your guns are California compliant. And you should always talk to John before you talk to anybody else gun-related. Our trusted firearms attorney is John Dillon. John Dillon specializes in California gun laws. Put his number on your phone right now, 760-642-7150. That's John Dillon's California firearms lawyer, 760-642-7150.
All right, I want to introduce everybody to someone very special. Her name's Sharie, and she's from the RAD Movement.
Why is she throwing her family out?
I don't know. I guess it must have been something you said.
I don't know. Well, it was Alisha taking a shower, I guess. She lied.
So, Sharie, tell us all about what is RAD?
So RAD, the reason why why it's called RAD is originally, prior to our family experiencing what we did, we had intentions on opening up a healing ranch for children who have RAD and age out of the system or age out of, they turn 18 and there's really nowhere for them to go. And
What
no
is
help
what
for
is
them.
RAD? What does that stand for?
It's reactive attachment disorder.
What is that?
And so, in layman's terms, everything they do is counterintuitive. If you tell a kid with RAD, don't touch that fire, it's going to burn your finger, they will touch the fire and look you dead in the eye while they do it.
I think I may have had that thing.
I think I did too.
I don't mean to joke about it, but I'm sure it's very serious.
So initially what our plan was to create this healing ranch at some point. And when our family experienced the tragedy that we did, and we ultimately ended up helping 2 other families after us, and then decided to kind of formalize what we were doing, it just organically was the RAD movement.
And what did you guys experience?
So our oldest adopted daughter had an experience at school that, because of her disabilities, she was unable to recognize that it was what it was. And in the midst of that, she spiraled and took off. And, in the 14 years that we had her placed with us and adopted, she had never, ever done anything like that. And it was a direct result of what she had experienced at school, which unfortunately I can't get too much into.
Yep, tell us what you can.
So ultimately she went missing for 5 days, and we found her with 5 traffickers.
Jeez.
So
you guys started this organization to stop trafficking.
Initially, what we started it for was to help families who experienced what we did. We are very big and strong supporters of law enforcement, but through our own personal tragedy, we learned that what law enforcement can do when a child goes missing is very limited.
Yeah.
And that's surprising to a lot of people, especially the layperson who...
Is it psychological or is it medical?
RAD?
Yeah.
It's a mental health issue, basically.
So did you know she had it when you adopted her?
Oh, yeah. Well, when we adopted her, no.
Okay.
So she was placed with us when she was 5, and she had an array of
Little signs.
things that, that...
And did you know what
needed
this
attention.
was?
We
even
did
though
not.
So
No.
So I guess the question is, what are some of the signs for families out there that they have a child that's going through this and they have no idea?
So in our experience, what we've learned over the last 14 years is every child who has had some type of bond broken with their mother, that maternal bond is broken or interrupted between the age 0 and 5, is likely going to have some form of reactive attachment disorder.
But the organization's focus isn't really on that.
No.
The organization's focus has turned to
fighting missing children, which has then organically evolved into helping anybody that goes missing. So it started with a Facebook message from a mom who said, I need your help. I heard your daughter was missing and you guys found her. Somebody told me to reach out to you. So I called my closest girlfriends and said, hey, we got to help this mom. Her kid's missing. Because, when you go through that, to this day, it's been 2.5, almost 3 years now, but I still have PTSD from it. So you go into this mode of you remember what that felt like, and you don't want anybody else to feel that for 2 seconds, longer than they have to. And so us girls found this girl up in Glendale within 4 hours.
how did that even...
Internet.
How do you even know where to start?
Us moms can get pretty crazy. No, in all seriousness, we started going through her social media. We went through her electronics, and we were able to put the pieces together. And so, again, what a lot of people don't understand is law enforcement can't just come take a phone and be like, okay, hang on, we're going to figure this out with her phone. They have to get search warrants. They have to get subpoenas. They have to go through all that.
Not like on TV.
Right. Where we don't.
Yeah.
And they can't go kick a door down. We
You
can.
So do you guys? Okay, so you went on social media and you found that this person, we're talking about totally separate. We're not talking about your daughter anymore. We're talking about somebody totally separate.
Yeah.
Somebody anonymous. So how much are you able to tell us about what was happening? Like, how did this girl disappear? What happened?
I can tell you everything. Her mom has come and spoke at our meetings and shared their story publicly. So it was an adult male, and he was what we call in this industry a Romeo pimp. So he was younger, but over 18, and he had hit her up on Snapchat, and she was 13. And it started with telling her, how pretty she was, and he wanted to be her boyfriend and all this. And she's, socially, emotionally too immature to understand any of it. And he groomed her to the point where he was actually coming from Glendale down to El Cajon and having relations with her in the parking lot of her apartment complex. And so he was kind of wooing her for about, I think we determined it was just over 2 months, and ultimately came down one night, picked her up, and took off with her. So the other way we were able to find her, too, was her brother had saw her in the parking lot talking to this person, and he snapped a picture of the license plate. And he had told the mom, hey, this guy was talking to her, So ultimately, we were able to run that plate through somebody who's part of our group who has that ability.
That we're not going to talk about.
That we're not going to talk about.
Hey, that's a trade secret,
yeah,
right?
And so we ultimately were able to track down 3 addresses with that license plate. And with his name and his social media, we were able to get a few more. There's another person on our team that literally, she's a godsend. You give her a name and an approximate age or date of birth, and she can tell you the last time they had a bowel movement. It's amazing. But she's a real asset.
So this person, and you said in Glendale?
Yes.
This person they found her with, and you described him as a Romeo pimp, which means that he pimps out girls, and the way he attracts them is he makes them think that he's... he wants to be their boyfriend. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful.
Yeah.
So this guy, this is what he does professionally. Like this is, he wasn't, this wasn't his first time. This is what he does over and over again.
He's a 19-year-old that was driving a brand new 7 Series and was in a penthouse apartment up in Glendale.
Jeez.
Yeah.
What were the consequences to him?
What tree is he hanging from?
So he took a plea deal. At the last minute. It was going to go to trial, but he took a plea deal at the last minute, and I believe he got just under 10 years. Yeah.
Wonder what happens to their assets. So this guy, he probably didn't have any assets. He was probably spending it.
Yeah, he does. He had a 7 Series.
Wow.
And
I think that all came, though, from what they call the gorilla pimp.
Forbidden fruit.
Yeah.
Or,
The guy up above him provides him with all that.
Oh, I see.
The guy up above him? So
The boss.
This pimp works for other pimps?
Yeah, so what the Romeo pimp does is they come in there and they grade them, if you will. And so they, court them and try to make them think that they want to be their boyfriend and ultimately have relations with them. And then they score them. And then they report back on whether, what they think of them and where to place them.
And then he passes her
on
to the guy upstairs.
Yep.
Did they get to the guy upstairs?
No. And that's the downfall of this. Sometimes, when we get them as early as we do with her, we don't necessarily get to the next
Next
guy.
level, yeah.
But we've knocked him out.
So how long have you been doing this?
It's been 2.5. Well, just over 2 years.
How many girls have you?
That's what you would talk about volume. Like what kind of is this rare, or is this something that's keeping a lot of people busy? Or
it's actually pretty common, sadly.
Didn't they just do a movie on it? I haven't seen it, but
Sound of Freedom. Yeah. So we personally have recovered 36 individuals. Not all of them are children. We have recovered some adults. Not all are trafficking situations. Sometimes, fortunately, we get them before it goes to that. Sometimes it's kids who are troubled and run away, or have mental health issues and end up in these homeless encampments. And, in many cases, they have been assaulted, but haven't necessarily been trafficked yet.
36 women and girls in 2.5 years.
And 1 male.
And 1 male. Goodness
gracious.
Yep.
I don't even understand. I don't even understand this.
It's not even a concept.
I can't even. I'm seriously. I don't understand this. Like it doesn't make
click.
sense. It's not. There's so many questions still. What?
No wonder you had a show off air.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to her. It was there was so much. So what? when we were kids, when I was a kid back in the 80s, it was don't take candy from strangers,
Right.
Which was pretty clear cut. Mm-hmm. But now it's like this complicated social media, internet driven. I mean, this is enormous emotional. You know what I mean? I mean,
And there's people that don't think TikTok and Facebook and Instagram are all bad. I think they're the worst.
They absolutely are.
Absolutely the worst.
There's private messaging abilities that
that's
kids that don't have
children
the
have
ability
no
to
business.
understand it. Correct.
Yeah, they have no business
And
on any of those apps.
The parents don't
even
know.
teenagers.
And your stories brings up this other thing that the kids thinking they're going to change from being a boy to a girl. How could they make that decision? Especially when little girls like her at the age of 13 fell for this guy.
Okay, so you talk. So one of the things you do is people contact you and you help them find. It must be extremely important to contact. You must get inquiries within 24 hours of someone missing. I mean, it must be pretty quick.
Yeah, the sooner we get contacted, the better. The first hour is crucial. Really.
How do they find you?
We are on social media, and we do have a website. And we do not look for people to go find. People come to us. So I guess.
You drive a black Escalade?
A white Denali.
No, you got to get a black one with all the windows tinted black.
My first Denali was black and all blacked out.
Yeah.
See?
It's a pain to clean.
I knew she was that. See, you never want to piss off a mom. I'm telling you. Orange County Gun Owners is dedicated to preserving and restoring Orange County self-defense rights. And if you live in Orange County and want to help defend and restore the Second Amendment, join ocgunowners.com/join. Orange County Gun Owners is the organization to help get more pro Second Amendment officials elected. Become a member today. ocgunowners.com/join.
So we're talking with Sharie from the RAD Movement, and I'm just completely blown away by this. So one of the things that you do is you help people reach out to you. They hear about you, word of mouth, social media, whatever. But if someone underage and female, if they're missing, not necessarily female.
Yeah, it's male or female, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter their age either.
So any age, but it sounds like the majority are underage and female.
They are.
If they disappear, you help find them. Your organization helps find them.
We do. And we've recently, in the last year, partnered with a ranch, which sadly is full now, but a ranch in Texas, because once these, I don't like to call them victims, I like to call them survivors. Once these survivors are located, the trauma that they have endured and what they need far surpasses anything in this state can offer them. And so it's a specialty care that they need. And so we've partnered with this ranch.
And they probably need to get out of the area to begin with.
Absolutely.
Change the venue.
Absolutely.
It's only 124 degrees.
What are some commonalities? What are some things that each of these cases have in common, or you know what I mean? What are some things that some patterns?
Well, with the younger girls, social media. They're communicating through social media, and they're communicating with people that they don't know, that they believe are kids, and in some cases they are. One case we had, they were actually using Pinterest to communicate. Pinterest has a chat feature, and we didn't know that until that case, but they are communicating with just random. These kids will communicate with anybody that will respond to them on the internet, and it's scary.
But I think that's interesting. So every girl, every underage girl's on social media. Like every one of them. They're all on whatever, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Yeah. But not all of them are talking to strangers, or even if the ones that are talking to strangers, they're not all leaving to go be with a stranger. Is there something happening? You know what I mean? Is there a common trait?
Well, I mean, I will say a lot of the population that we're dealing with has some sort of mental health illness or some special needs. There is that has been an element on a lot of the cases that we've dealt with. Some of these kiddos, the vast majority, have been on IEPs, individualized educational programs through their schools, or they've got something going on.
But these guys are surfing.
They prey on them.
That's all they're doing is they're going, and then they'll just say, "Hey, Julie, I seen your website or I seen your post. Man, you are absolutely gorgeous." Maybe, I know it
spread
goes,
a wide net and see who.
Well, that's what it is, and whoever responds back and says, "Oh, well, thank you."
So what kind of cooperation or what kind of response? How do you guys work with law enforcement?
I will tell you this: sheriffs have been amazing. We've worked pretty closely with the San Diego Sheriff's Missing Juvenile Unit for the last over a year now. Nice. We have a common understanding and mutual respect. And I think once they got to know us and, what we were about, that we weren't some, rogue group, and we are respectable, that changed the dynamic there.
What do you think they were worried? You think they were worried about you being inexperienced, or they were worried about you being vigilantes, or what was the concern?
Yeah, I mean, there's there are vigilantes out there, and I mean, do we do what we need to do to get the kid home? We do, but we are we're smart, and we are ethical, and I think we conduct ourselves in a way that is respectable, period. And we still get the job done.
Do you just go as far as apprehension? I mean, do you just follow it right, or do you actually...
If we have to.
We
do what we need to do to get the kid home.
So how do you find people who are qualified to apprehend?
We are very particular. Our group is pretty tight. The majority of us have known each other well over 20 years.
How many in the group?
Our core group, there's about 11 of us. But as far as volunteers, upwards of 40, if more. If we need people to go ride trolleys, we have about 60 trolley riders. And we say that when I say trolley riders is because when a kiddo goes missing, the first thing we do is put a bunch of people on the trolleys.
Right.
Why is that?
Because that's typically how they're getting around.
Yeah, how
really?
Well,
the trolleys and the Sprinter.
They don't have a car.
Yeah.
They don't have a car.
So
if they're not getting picked up on their front door.
Right. So, but how? I guess my question. I mean, have you guys gone through? Is there some kind of training, or do you look for people with a certain background? I mean, confronting a career criminal is not recommended. That's not a walk in the park.
No. I can only speak for myself personally. When you've been the parent of a child that's missing, there's nothing that's going to stop you.
You do what you have to do.
You do what you have to do.
Do what you have to do.
Well, but I guess what I'm asking though is there a training program or you know what I mean?
So
here's what I'm really looking for. If there are people out there who are like, hey, I think I want to help this organization, how would they get involved? I mean, they don't necessarily have to go confront a bad guy.
Right.
There are a lot of things to do, but do you have, training for that kind of thing, or how does that work? So
the majority of the individuals that are door kickers have law enforcement, have military. So there's that. So if you do have law enforcement or military background, I know there was at least one other organization in town that was doing something similar, and like all their guys were former special ops guys.
Wasn't that off of the one from?
Yeah.
But him and his buddy were doing it.
Well, it was like a whole group of them, but
right.
But you don't. But you have positions for other. It sounds like a trolley rider or something who wouldn't confront somebody. It sounds like you have positions for all kinds of people.
Absolutely.
Okay. Are you looking for more people to
We're
volunteer?
always looking for people to volunteer. Like right now, we've got 2 kiddos that are missing, and more than half my team's on vacation or has weddings so there's always room. Always room for volunteers.
How much when you what you said 32?
36.
36. How many of them were found and didn't want to go with you?
That's interesting because we have yet to face that. We have had a couple of kiddos who were resistant, but it's interesting what a In-N-Out hamburger in a conversation will do with a teenager, and that's our thing. We take them 9 times out of 10, they haven't eaten in a few days and they're hired in a kite because the individuals that they're with are keeping them drugged or they're in the encampments and they're searching out the drugs.
So these, was this the first time for the majority of them that they were exposed to drugs?
The majority, yes.
So the first time, and that's insanity.
They get them hooked on meth right away, and that's how they keep control over them.
So Dave brought up, what's the name of the movie that's out?
Sound of Freedom.
I mean, all I've heard is, I've talked about it on the show. I stopped watching news like 2 years ago. One of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. I'm being completely and totally serious. I stopped watching the news, and I love my life much, much more. But occasionally something trickles into my world, even though I'm not watching the news.
That would be me.
And the uproar over this movie has trickled into my world, and it's unbelievable. You and I were talking before. How are there two sides to this?
Yeah.
How could there possibly be two sides to this movie?
There shouldn't be.
But what do you know? What can you tell us about the movie?
Did you go see it?
It's very real. No, we did buy 20 tickets because there was a goal to, sell a certain amount of tickets by the 4th of July.
That's right.
So we did buy the 20 tickets. We have not had the opportunity to go watch it yet.
You probably don't want to.
I have reservations.
Yeah.
I do.
Why? Why do you have reservations?
Just because of my own experience,
Yeah.
which is ironic because I do what I do, but we live it. We live it.
The concern is that it will be upsetting, or what's the concern?
Triggering, yeah.
See, I don't even want to go see it.
No, but not because you don't like what he's doing.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, just because, compassion fatigue is a real thing,
Talk,
It's a real
what
thing.
is compassion fatigue?
When we're doing this all the time,
Yeah.
it does. It can wear you down. And we do have to take, each of us systematically have to take timeouts, because it gets to you.
Well, that's like a police officer.
Absolutely.
Let's say works in sex trafficking, funny thing.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, they have to take a break. They have to get out of it.
Yeah.
Or they end up. And me personally, I don't even go to scary movies. Okay, because I know enough about this field. It's just, if it had been any of my kids,
Yeah.
I'd be in jail.
Yeah.
I'm serious. But
Yep.
and I would be more than happy to go, because whatever that person did, he would have the greatest time for 6 months before
Yeah.
I would be arrested.
So is this what you do full time?
No.
Does anybody work
Thank
for the
God.
organization full time?
No. I mean, I say no, but it seems like it's full time because it does take up a piece of our days, a section of our days.
100% volunteer driven.
100%.
That's amazing. Now,
Yep.
I'm assuming there's the ability. You guys must collect some kind of funding. Do you have donors or?
So I tell everybody this is very personal for me. This is not, we had to incorporate and all this stuff to get our nonprofit status. So I went through all that to get that nonprofit status, so people who do donate to us can write it off or have that benefit. And it helps us to have relationships with people. But for me personally, the only time we ever ask for money is if we are transporting a kiddo. We'll say, hey, we need miles, or can you help us buy these flights? And so we'll put out like a crowdfunding, if you will. And as soon as the need is met, we stop it. So we don't take in thousands and thousands of dollars. We do it on an as-needed basis. We have RAD bags that we also ask for donations. We ask for the items for those bags. And what a RAD bag is when a survivor is recovered, we take them straight to the hospital. So when they go to the hospital, if they have been assaulted, they leave that hospital without their clothes and their belongings. They live in a hospital gown. So we learned this firsthand. So we created these RAD bags that has everything that a survivor would need to get them through 3 days. Mm-hmm. It has clothing, it has toiletries, it has journals, Bibles if they so choose, just anything you can think of that somebody might need just to get by 3 days.
Right.
So,
have you been contacted by others who want to do what you do?
As far as
I live in Northern California and I want to set up the same type of thing up here that you guys do down there.
So it's interesting. The one thing that I found in this arena, if you will, is we will work with anybody. We will help anybody. If another organization calls us and says, hey, this kiddo might be down in your area, can you help us out? Not a problem. Mm-hmm. We have experience where we've reached out to other organizations to help, and we don't get that same reply. It's very ego-driven.
I was going to say, what do you think?
It's
probably. I think that's common. Can you stay for another?
Sure.
Okay. I think that's common though in other organizations. I've had other Second Amendment organizations where it's purely ego-driven. They just I want all the credit. I want all the resources. You should just go away. And it's like, well, wait a minute.
We don't have any room for that, and we don't allow it.
There you go. Hey, have you ever wanted to get a pilot's license? Well, here in San Diego, pilots can fly almost every day, which makes San Diego one of the best places to learn how to fly in the world. Learn to fly with San Diego Flight Training International. Check out this deal just for gun owners. 1 hour ground school, 1 hour of flight, And you get to fly. It was normally $400, but you get it for $350. And getting started is super easy. Call 858-569-1822. Learn to fly with SDFTI. 858-569-1822. This show has got me so baffled I forgot to do the intro.
Well,
Did you notice it?
No.
And you didn't correct me.
I was
Baffled as well.
Yeah, well, I try to correct you only once or twice per show.
Oh,
And I think
yeah, but
we've already been way over.
My shins are killing me.
So we're talking with Sharie from RAD. There's been a lot of kind of the bad parts of what you do, and what's your favorite success story?
There's two that come to mind right away. One of them is a 15-year-old that we pulled out of Camp Pendleton back in November of last year. And she is away right now in Utah receiving treatment and doing phenomenal.
What do you mean pulled out of Camp Pendleton?
We pulled her out of a barrack.
What?
Back in November.
So
everybody's up in arms about this. There's a 14-year-old from El Cajon that was just pulled out recently, just this last week. Did you hear about
Another
that?
one?
Yeah. She's the third one.
This is some 18, 19-year-old nothing in the Marine Corps who...
I believe so. In that case, we literally went right on. Again, we found her through social media. We found right where she was at because the individual that she was with, we found through her social media, and he ignorantly was posting, and we were tracking him and following him. So we figured out where she was and what barrack she was in, and me and one other team member went up to, it's up off Basilone. Mm-hmm. And so we went up there, and it was interesting how we got on base.
I was going to say, how did you get on base?
I pulled up, I gave him my card, I showed him the missing persons flyer, and he looked like he was 12. And so I said, we're looking for her. Can you please escort us back there? And he said, no, go ahead and go. Call 911 if you need help. And I looked over at the person in my passenger seat, and I said, is he joking? And he said, go. I said, okay.
Wow. So what do you, are these this Marine, was this a situation where an 18, 19-year-old Marine courted a 14, 15-year-old girl, and he was trying to get a girlfriend, or were they trafficking this girl in the Marine barracks?
So we're not clear on that because, so what we did is we went back there. We circled the building looking at, so on all their doors, most of them have a paper slipped in there with their name on it. This particular door did not. We figured out where she was at based on two other Marines that were walking around when we were asking where the individual was, and he said he stays right up here, and he showed us. So by the time the gunny and the sergeant.
Yeah, the gunny.
I want to make sure I have all the terms right. But
especially Marines.
Yeah, the gunny and the sergeant got up there. We had already had her out of the room. And so we were leaving with her.
Was that kid that was the guy there?
He was not there, but there was 4 other Marines in there with her. And they had the door barricaded. Yeah. So
what's happening to these Marines?
So in this particular case, our goal is just to get them and get them out.
Right.
And we let law enforcement deal with the rest. So in that particular case, in hindsight, I probably would have had my team member stick around, or I stick around, so we could have had a little bit more follow through. But we were just in such disbelief that A, we got right on the base, and B, that we had found her and that she was with 4 Marines. And so we just wanted to get her out of there. And so we left right away. I did give my card to the sergeant. Mm-hmm. So this all started about 11 a.m. And again, we contacted the family, let them know that we had recovered her, and to meet us at Rady's Children's. So we said, we're going to stop and get her something to eat. She said she hasn't eaten in 2 days. So we went to In-N-Out on the way down to Rady's, and she opened up a little bit, but not a whole lot. And so I didn't want to push because I was hoping that they would do the SART exam and get what they needed there. So we got her to Rady's, and I stayed with the family until just about 7:30 at night, and she had agreed. I explained to her the importance of a SART exam and what it was, and all the things with regard to that. She had agreed to it, which let me know that she had been assaulted, because she's, typically they're not going to agree to a SART exam if they hadn't been assaulted. And so about 7:30ish, they were going to take her to go to the SART exam, and she denied it and just shut down completely. So I went ahead and left because they were admitting her for the night in the psych unit. So I went ahead and left. By 8 o'clock, I was pulling in my driveway, and NCIS was calling. And they weren't interested in giving him any information, just obtaining information. So from the family, what I've learned from the family is, as far as they know, those 4 Marines have all been stationed elsewhere.
Elsewhere.
Not court-martialed? Not kicked out of the military?
That's all the grandfather knows, is that they have been stationed elsewhere.
Wow. So why did this one stick out in your head? What as far as a...
Because I guess how she's doing now, because she went through quite a bit. She was actually picked up at the Oceanside Pier, and that's another hot spot, sadly.
What do you mean? What do you mean it's a hot spot?
That's where a lot of girls get picked up, is the Oceanside Pier.
I don't understand. So the girls are just hanging out at the Oceanside Pier, and why are girls hanging out at the Oceanside Pier?
Ask their parents.
Is this just a? Yeah. Is it a? The only thing I know about the Oceanside Pier is you go fishing there. Like what they
No, it's a hangout.
No, it's a hangout.
It's a hangout
kids
for
as young as 13 are hanging out there. We had a girl go missing that was 13 from there.
Yeah.
Ended up in
so
LA.
13. What? This 13-year-old girl's hanging out at Oceanside Pier, and some animal
they preyed on
kidnaps
her.
They prey on him.
Yeah.
And just that's insanity. I don't understand.
And
I don't
in some
understand what's
cases,
going
they
on.
make money.
A lot of cases.
Well, I think that's the point that they're making money off these girls.
There's side effects that go with it too, but generally speaking, because there's other people, the boss, recruiting younger guys to do this, and somebody's driving a M7 in a penthouse.
So okay. So it sounds like you're very nuts and bolts. You know what I mean? Like, hey, look, there's a girl missing. Let's just go get her.
Yep.
Get her the help she needs. But what have you like? What are some of the broader some of your broader thoughts? Like what's going on here? Like, why is this happening? What needs to change? And what's the solution? And have you gotten that far, or is it just I'm just going to stick to the nuts and bolts?
No, I mean, we show up at a lot of different things, advocating for things, and county meetings and meetings with law enforcement, trying to get things changed. And unfortunately, it's at a higher level where it's coming down from. And there's many different factors. I think getting your kids off social media, period. It doesn't matter what app it is. Even if they're a good kid. My daughter was a straight A student. She was at ASB. She was a cheerleader. She's got special needs. She didn't have social media apps. This happened at school is where it originated from. So, I mean, it can happen to anybody, really.
What's standing in your way? Like, is there anybody that's, you know what I mean? Is there a group or a person or a policy, or is there anybody giving you a hard time or any, resistance, or are you guys pretty broadly supported?
We're pretty broadly supported. It's interesting. Child Welfare Services calls us as of late to help us find their missing kids. There is upwards of 80 missing foster youth right now. I would say El Cajon Police is pretty supportive. The chief over there is amazing. San Diego PD is hit and miss. We have built relationships with a lot of different officers by, each case that we've worked on, and they're like, wait, who are you guys? What do? You guys just do this to do it? Wow, can I get your card, right? And then, of course, sheriffs, we work pretty closely with them because they have a specific division for missing juveniles. El Cajon, La Mesa, San Diego PD does not. So, and then we have worked with some people in the human trafficking task force. Do you
have PIs that you work with or work with you, or have you guys all just kind of turned into private investigators?
We all kind of turned into it, but we do have 2 that are licensed, and then we have people that are out of state that can do things that we can't legally do here. They can do it quickly for us with a phone call.
What's an example of something you can't legally do here?
Well, you can't. She can't tell you.
Yeah.
You don't want to go into it?
No.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you off air.
There's a lot of I shouldn't be surprised. There's a lot of things you can't legally do in California that make sense.
Right.
Well, it's not just California.
No, it's not just California.
This is nationwide.
Yeah, but you said the things that you can't legally do here,
right?
But
in California.
You may not be able to do them in Nevada or Utah or Colorado.
Yeah.
Because each state's got its own rules and regulations.
They do, but there are some.
Ours are worse.
There's some states in the Midwest that can do some things that we can't do.
So what do you? How can people help? People that are listening, how can they help?
Follow us, and when we do have a need, help us meet that need. I think I was telling you off air, we don't keep a huge fund.
Right.
We strictly ask for donations on an as-needed basis. If we need a flight to get a recovered kiddo to Texas, or in some cases, we had a gal that she was a domestic violence survivor in one of the encampments, and we happened to come across that case while we were working another case. We got her a plane ticket and got her to Nashville within an hour.
Have you? So, what is an encampment? Why are there encampments in San Diego?
All the homeless encampments.
Yeah. What do you? But tell specifically. Like, I've seen homeless up and down the streets in downtown San Diego and whatever. Yeah. Well, tell us what so people don't assume they know what an encampment is. What's an encampment?
It's a homeless encampment where there's a bunch of tents and homeless people and.
Well, like where? Where would you find this?
Well,
all over San Diego.
Where specifically?
Yeah. Well, down by the Point Loma area. That's where we have found a ton of kids.
In Point Loma, there's a homeless encampment.
Down by Sports Arena. Is that Point Loma?
Yeah, Sports Arena.
Yeah.
I know exactly where you're talking about.
Yep.
That's insane. Well, thank you for what you do.
Thank you for having
And please
us.
thank everybody that helps you.
Thank you.
Now you just ruined the rest of our show because we can't get serious now. I mean, we all want to just do what we can to help. Hey, Inland Empire gun owners strive to be the ounce of prevention in the fight for your gun rights. How do they do it? They do it by fundraising and getting local pro-gun candidates elected. So you need to become a member today. Go to iegunowners.com/join and join the growing number of responsible gun owners stepping up to defend our Second Amendment rights. That's iegunowners.com/join.
All right, so subscribe and win. Winners, prizes, and events. If you subscribe to our email list and you get a Gun Owners Radio email, you could win. You could win some really cool stuff. So all you got to do is go to gunownersradio.com and subscribe, and you'll get an email I'm going to say about once a week or so.
Do we have a winner?
We have a winner, and the email will tell you what we're up to and point you in the direction of stuff like our Magnum episodes and all kinds of cool stuff. So subscribe, and you could win. This week's winner, Patrick Cole.
All right.
Congratulations to Patrick. Email prizes at gunownersradio.com to claim your T-shirt or hat. Prizes, PRIZES at gunownersradio.com. So that was an amazing guest, wasn't it?
I don't know how Rich does it, but he sure finds the good ones.
He does. It was amazing.
I mean, what's amazing about it is how somebody that's not looking for a paycheck that will get in a car and do the things she does.
Yeah.
Like she said,
and their whole crew.
Her whole crew.
Well, the whole thing's amazing. I can't believe it. What were your thoughts, Alisha? I know I saw you're very engaged.
She's going to join.
We're going to talk.
You don't have enough on your plate.
As a mom, it really hits home. I have 2 teenage girls, and I will tell you that being a woman, a girl myself, that those teenage years that she's talking about, like she talked about 12, 13, those are really vulnerable, hard years where I'm not sure how it is for the boys. But as a girl, there's a transition that happens there, and you kind of get so much self-doubt, and there's a struggle until you kind of develop and figure out your place. And to have someone compliment and show interest, that's a really vulnerable time to where the girls are going to be really open to that, and they're hungry and they're looking for someone to kind of love on them in that way, especially ones with backgrounds that that she talked about with troubled backgrounds, whether it's just home life or past abuse. It's just a really vulnerable time.
And, even the ones that didn't have a bad home life.
Right.
There was one of them, the mom and dad were great.
Absolutely. It's a tough time for so many kids, but if they have that added layer of trauma, it just makes them so much more vulnerable. And the addition of social media, having access to these kids in ways that we, growing up, I didn't have that. It was just whatever local trouble I could get into. People couldn't find me otherwise. So it just adds another layer of complexity and access that didn't exist before.
Well, as a girl, you're more vulnerable to having a guy say, "My God, you are absolutely gorgeous. You have the most beautiful hair, yada, 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 yada." And you just melt.
Right.
Because girls, I think at that age group, are starving for affection, starving for, that relationship that they don't necessarily have.
Right. Do you think there's a little bit, we were just saying how, bad background, good background, whatever. It almost seems like, and I don't know this, but there was a little hint of this in some of her stories, where it was almost the better the background, the more likely they were to be a victim. And maybe that has to do with, being naive and just not like, hey, I grew up in this kind of suburban environment, nothing.
Those kind of things don't happen to good kids.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Well,
it's almost like if they had a bad background, they were tougher and wouldn't have believed.
It's possible.
Did you ever want to be part of the group? Did you ever want to be accepted by your peers when you were 11, 12 years old?
Oh, who doesn't, right?
Well, see, that's my point.
That's
it.
And it's easy to prey on a girl than a guy. I mean, man, that was a real tough hour.
That was. Well, that was extremely interesting. I'm glad she's doing what she's doing. I'm glad she's doing what she's doing. I wish she didn't
have to do it.
Yeah, I wish there was no business for her.
And you're talking about you didn't see the movie. I've not seen the movie. I'm not going to see the movie. But the remarks on both sides of the aisle about this movie, the positive side, and then this stream. How could you do that? It's the worst movie you could ever do. It's none of it's true.
Yeah, I don't understand the pushback.
Well, I don't understand the pushback.
They want to live in their bubble. They want to live in their happy bubble.
I think they're aliens.
I'll go for you, Dave.
Yeah, you can go for me. I'm not going.
I haven't seen a movie.
Oh, take him to the movies, would you?
All right, we'll go.
Get some Asian food. Get it to go. Go down. You'll have fun.
So, real quick, let's touch on the fact that the Sig Sauer P320 M18 was added to the California gun roster.
What is that?
As we know, the Safe Handgun roster is, by design, trying to basically ban handguns.
What? I thought they were keeping us safe.
Yeah. And they're in order to get on the roster, you have to have the reason it turned into a ban. At first, it was just we're just going to keep you safe.
Right.
We're going to evaluate each pistol. We're going to
don't you have to remove three to put one on?
Well, so before that though, the idea was, hey, we just want to test it and put it on. But then they did this microstamp, and the microstamp doesn't exist, and that's why it actually turned into a ban. But what's happened is the 320 is now there have been a couple of pistols that have gotten on there, like revolvers or whatever, that sort of thing. But this is the first semi-automatic mainstream pistol that's gotten on there in a long time, and it's because of the cases, especially the Bolin case up in the CRPA is working on. I think what's happened is there are all these cases. There was the Miller case, the assault weapons case. There was the Rena and the Bolin case that have to do with the roster. There were a bunch of lawsuits that were kind of in limbo. The Miller case, we had a positive ruling. There were some other ones, didn't have a positive ruling, and but there was nothing finalized. It was kind of in limbo, and we weren't quite sure what the next step was. And then the Bruin case came out of the Supreme Court. That changed everything. Totally changed. Said, hey, look, history, text, tradition. If there's no history of it, if it's not written in the text, and there isn't a tradition, then this law is unconstitutional. And so a lot of these cases had to be revisited. And I think what's happening is they're basically seeing the writing on the wall, and that's one of the reasons the P320, which is also the M18, was added to the roster. And why you can now purchase it in California, which is pretty amazing. But you were asked about you have to pull. I don't know how they're working that, and there's actually been a lot of questions on the internet as to wait a minute. How are they working that? Who's deciding what guns get pulled off? But the idea was, and I think it was a little misleading. The idea was they tried to make, because you couldn't comply with the microstamp.
Right.
So they said, okay, we're going to make it easier to comply with the microstamp. And in all honesty, there were a couple of Democrats who said, look, this is ridiculous that we have this law that people can't even comply with. They're true believers. They said, hey, we want this microstamp thing to happen. We're blocking progress, so we're going to make it easier for the microstamp to happen. But then we're going to require that if you get a gun on there that has the compliant microstamp, that other guns have to come off. That was the idea. That was the actual idea. Like I said, they were true believers.
Well, how do you make it easier when the technology is not there?
Well, the reality is you can't. And they were fed a bill of goods that if
you give us enough money, we'll come up with it.
If it goes, if it's really impossible, making it less impossible is still impossible. But I do believe that I completely and totally disagree with their worldview. But they were true believers. They truly believed that, this is a good thing and it'll help save lives and we're going to try to fix it. They didn't.
They didn't. Is there a better tool? Hey, quiet. Is there a better tool that empowers a woman to defend against an attacker that's 100 pounds bigger?
Nope.
That's why it's so important for women to learn how to defend themselves with the most effective self-defense tool ever invented. For women led by women, the Not Me program is designed to help with training programs, a gun, and getting a concealed carry permit. And guess what? It's free. To sign up, go to notmesd.org.
So La Mesa is poised to pass some gun regulations. Everyone's heard. We talked about it.
Yep.
And I wanted to give a whole lot of background and context here. So Heller versus D.C. was the 2008 Supreme Court decision that was the first big Second Amendment decision. Probably at the time the biggest Second Amendment decision the Supreme Court had put out. Not probably, for sure. It was huge. Since then, the Bruin decision has changed things a little bit, significantly, more than a little bit, for the better. So it's gotten even better when it comes to the Second Amendment. But what the whole case was based on was your inability to keep a gun in your home in Washington, D.C. So if you lived in Washington, D.C., your gun had to be locked up at all times or inoperable or in a safe at all times, and it was decided that is not constitutional. So a lot of these gun storage laws got blown off the books, but then they reappeared, especially here in California, on the municipal level, on the county level. And they're slightly different. Everybody says, well, wait a minute, how can they have a gun storage law when Heller versus D.C. already settled all that? You hear that a lot. Well, why can they do that? They're just going to take it to court, and that'll be that. We don't even have to fight that. They just take it to court, and they'll hold up the Heller versus D.C. decision, and the judge will rule in our favor, and we'll all walk away, and that's that. Well, it's not exactly. The way that they restructured this is that you still have to have your guns inoperable or locked up or in a safe or whatever, unless you're actually touching the gun. So that's why, to them, it is a significant difference between what was going on in Washington, D.C. and what these new laws are. I don't agree. A lot of people on the Second Amendment community don't agree that is a significant enough difference. So we still don't think it's constitutional. But in the meantime, the county of San Diego has passed this. The city of San Diego has passed this. Del Mar has passed this. Solana Beach, some of the usual anti-Second Amendment suspects have passed this, so that you have to keep your firearm locked up or inoperable inside your home unless you're actually physically touching it. Now, the regulation actually says, in your control, but they don't actually really define, what does that mean, in your control? So the most literal definition is, of course, if you're physically touching it. Hasn't been a lawsuit, hasn't been litigated yet. There's so many other things to litigate that it's certainly on the list of things that the Second Amendment groups want to get rid of. But right now, there are just other priorities. If money and time were endless, then we'd be working on this in the courtrooms right now. But instead, we're fighting it from spreading, to other municipalities. So what happened was La Mesa tried to pass this identical thing last year. It was identical to what San Diego and Del Mar and Solana Beach and some of the other municipalities in California had passed. And it was shot down. Laura Lothian led the charge. We helped get her elected. We're very, very happy. Bill Baber voted against it. Bill was somebody we also endorsed. And then the swing vote was the mayor, Dr. A. He basically said that, hey, this whole issue isn't what La Mesa is about. We're supposed to be improving the community. This is clearly a political, attempt to spread politics that should be national or statewide, and they're trying to pollute La Mesa with this.
Good for him for stepping out of it and not getting caught up in the, he kind of stepped out and saw it for what it was. I
agree. I think that's, I don't really care why people behave. I just care that they behave. Mm-hmm. And And I thought it was great too that he's not a gun expert. He doesn't seem to have a real strong opinion either way on guns, but
didn't take the bait and get sucked in.
Exactly. I would guess that he's probably, he's probably not a Second Amendment advocate. I would guess. I don't really know, but anyway, I'm glad he did that too. I'm glad you brought that up and said that because I agree with you wholeheartedly, 100%. So things have changed since last year. Bill Baber, unfortunately, is no longer on the city council and was replaced by somebody who's shown to be not a fan of the Second Amendment. So they brought it back. And this guy, his name's Councilman Shu. Jack Shu. He brought it back and basically said, just let everybody else, hey, this is going to be just like San Diego. It's going to be just like Solana Beach. It's going to be just like, Del Mar. So we all showed up. He said, hey, we got to show up, especially if you live on the Mesa, you need to show up and talk. So I think we had last Tuesday, somewhere around 70 folks on our side, and there were maybe half a dozen that supported this. And it was a really, really good showing. With very, very few exceptions. The statements made by the folks who opposed it were well thought out, were extremely level-headed. Alisha, you said you watched it, right?
I did. I watched. I was not able to make it myself, but I did watch the live stream. And a question I had, you actually kind of already answered. But what my observations as someone looking at it from the outside that wasn't able to be there in person, the amount of support and applause that was audible for those who opposed the measure was fantastic. And when a speaker, there were just, as you said, there were a few that got up in support of it. I think I could tell one person was clapping. I was curious, what was the split on support for versus against? Because it sounded like it was a lone person clapping.
Yeah, it was widely in favor of us. We definitely outnumbered them. Like I said, it was probably a good 70 folks that showed up to try to defeat this measure, and I think there were maybe 6, maybe 8 that opposed or that supported it.
With their opposition, were any of their arguments, at least intelligible?
So it's a good question. So
they were emotional.
It was all very emotional. Yeah,
it was a
lot of emotion.
Yep.
But that's where I'm going with this too. Is that there were a lot of people that said, hey, we need to do this to support, suicide, to make sure that people can't commit suicide. There were a lot of people who said, this will help, with criminal activity and that sort of thing. And there was a lot of back and forth on, we need this because, there were actually some personal stories of people who knew a loved one or had a friend or whatever who committed suicide. And then there were people saying, look, you can't defend yourself if the firearm is in a safe. You cannot, get the lock off quick enough if somebody's standing in your house, that sort of thing. And one of the points I made was, a lot of the folks who talk about gun storage laws, securing a firearm as being suicide prevention, say, hey, look, it delays them just enough because a lot of people that survive suicide say that it's, a split moment decision, and a lot could delay them just enough to rethink suicide. Well, those same people are saying, look, it's not going to prevent you from defending yourself because they have these biometric safes and locks that are so easy to get into that it'll never you can get into it in just half a second. And I pointed out the fact that both those things can't be true. It can't be true that a lock or a safe or whatever delays you long enough to prevent suicide.
But yet you can get in real quick.
But doesn't delay you long enough to be able to defend yourself.
Anybody comment against that?
No.
Well, there's no back and forth.
Oh.
By the way, everybody listening, when you go to these city council meetings, don't ask them questions. They can't answer the questions.
Oh.
When you're in the doing the public statements, and you ask them a question and they sit there and look at you blankly, it's because they can't. They are not allowed to answer the questions. So it makes you look, well, it's a little, it usually goes better if you look like you know what you're doing. So So that was kind of the whole push, though, was, hey, we need this to prevent suicide. And then the other side was, hey, we need this. We need to strike this down so that we can defend ourselves.
Right.
And, if you look at the, the county report, 70% of gun deaths, deaths where a gun's involved, 70% are suicide, 30% are homicide. So it was kind of split down the middle as far as, their side was trying to prevent suicide. Our side was trying to prevent homicide.
Yet they presented this bill as a measure to protect children. And then they were turning it into suicide prevention.
So, and then there was a couple people mentioned kids. There was even a trained psychiatrist or some kind of counselor or therapist who said, "Oh, we got to protect the children," or whatever.
Right.
So I actually read the penal code. That was the first part of my statement. Was I read the penal code that in the state of California, you cannot store a firearm in such a way that a child or a prohibited person has access to it. So. Making a law that makes so you have to on the municipal level, so you have to store your firearm so that a child can't have access to it. It's, you know what I mean? It's already law.
You need to write it down again,
right? There was nothing about this gun storage law that would do anything to further protect children. It was completely duplicative, and I brought that up as well. A number of people did, but I actually read the California Penal Code so that it was. One
clear.
So it was clear. One of the anti-gunners said, "Oh, well, gee, sure, it's on the state level, but it's ambiguous and it's vague." Whatever. No, it's not. It's crystal friggin' clear, and there was nothing they were going to do. So, one of our members, a guy named Jeff, actually brought in a safe and a lock.
That was fantastic.
And demonstrated like, hey, look, this is how long it takes. This is what you actually have to do. I thought that was fantastic. There were a number of people who used their expertise and said, but the best thing was that by and large, the vast majority were reasonable, put on a great face. I think that people on the council and people in the audience that aren't used to dealing with the Second Amendment community were probably very impressed. In fact, I got some compliments about that. But it was pretty interesting what ended up happening. I want to talk about in the next segment exactly what happened because nobody's getting it right. The Union Tribune wrote a story. They didn't get it right. And another couple other sources didn't get it right.
Were they there?
My jaw was on the floor.
There was it wasn't there. One guy was listening. One of the authors was not there, but he was watching it live and actually contacted me after. He's a known anti-gun guy. He's blasted. He's so biased. It's not even. I mean, he doesn't even hide it, But he didn't get it right, even though he should have, because I explained it to him. We'll talk about what they didn't get right next.
Hey, if you've liked this show so far, you need to join San Diego County Gun Owners. $10, come on. Then you need to go to Gun Prom. You got to buy Alisha dinner. Hey, FM 96.1 AM 1170.
The answer.
Hey, a lot of companies waste an enormous amount of money on marketing. The design is excellent, the photos are beautiful, and the website looks great. But it's just not getting customers. Why? Because you don't have the words that make people buy. But now you can fix that with Sage Tree. Sage Tree can help you find the words that make it easy for your customers to understand what you do and how to buy from you. Stop wasting money today and schedule a call. Getting started is super easy. Just visit sagetree.com and click on the schedule an appointment button. That's sagetree.com and hit that schedule a call button.
All right, so we're talking about La Mesa and what happened last Tuesday night. It was going on about the way the arguments and testimony fell, and so then what happened? So then they said, all right, great. Everybody has done their public comment. So let's turn it over to Jack Shu. Jack, what do you have to say? Because Jack Shu, the council member, is the one that actually proposed it. And he started off, it was weird. He said, like, hey, look, he said, nothing that anybody here has said has convinced me that this is a bad regulation. He said, and by the way, there's actually no requirement to have your gun locked up as long as you're home. It's only if you're not at home.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. But then he went on to say, and I got to tell you guys, we all heard some moving statements about how we have to pass this because of suicide prevention. Okay, well, the way he changed the reg, that you only have to have it locked up when you're not at home, it's no longer suicide prevention. Because in 100% of the cases,
the people are home.
He's home. The guy who committed suicide is at home. There was no requirement for the gun to be locked up. So it immediately...
Did anybody bring that up?
Well, so Laura Lothian was next to comment, and she goes, wait. Oh, and then, but before I even go there, then he said, all right, so let's go ahead and vote on this thing and let's get it passed. And the mayor's like, well, no. The rest of the city council gets to comment, number one. And number two, we're not voting to pass this regulation. We're voting to draft it. We don't even have the wording yet. He's like, well, it's just like it's the same thing as last year. So he totally contradicted himself. He said on one breath, like, oh, no, we're if you're not home, that's when it needs to be locked up. And then he said, oh, no, it's the exact same thing as last year. It's completely not. It was seriously, it was, sometimes when you're on a board, some of these city council members kind of get lost in the process. And it's like, well, where are we now? Do we need a second or do we vote or where are we? Right. That's fine. That's excusable. That's why you have a parliamentarian,
But the content changes.
But he didn't know. Yeah, he was completely lost. He didn't know what he was proposing. He didn't know,
He just wanted to pass it.
He didn't even know what he would pass.
Do you think he really didn't know, or do you think he was backpedaling when he didn't have the support? Because I got the feeling like he heard the overwhelming lack of support, and then it kind of was like, well, this is what I really meant by it.
Yeah, well, you're probably right. When you have, 60, 70, whatever people standing there telling you how wrong you are, and he kind of figured that out. So then Laura Lothian said, wait.
She was fantastic.
She is fantastic. She's 100% fantastic. I'm so glad that we got her elected. She is just absolutely the best.
So what'd she say?
She said there's nothing in here that says, that it's only when you're not home. There's nothing in here that in this description that that says you don't have to be home. That's the only time it's locked up. And then she went on to point out some of the other weaknesses, in the law. Like, for example, in the regulation, the proposed regulation, the one example she gave that was really, really great was, let's say you do use a firearm in self-defense. And then, the investigation shows that it wasn't stored properly. Well, now you've gone from victim to criminal. Well, wait a minute. This person didn't have it stored properly. Now we're going to press charges on her. I thought that was an excellent point. She did an excellent job. Then Shu's the co-author, the co-sponsor of the regulation. I don't remember her name. She's brand new on the city council.
Give me a minute.
But she was like, well, wait. She said, look, I want to make sure that this thing is only when you're not home. Whatever we got to do. We got to make an amendment, whatever we got to do. So then Shu started talking about how, all right, well, let's pass this thing, and let's
change it later.
Let's do a resolution. And the city attorney was like, there's no resolution. Like, you just all you're doing is directing staff to actually draft this thing. You're not passing a regulation. You're not passing a resolution.
What a moron.
It was really scary. I mean, this is complicated public safety stuff, and he seemed to have no idea what he was talking about. I really, truly, I really try to refrain. I think a lot of people who have talked to me, who listen to the radio, I'm pretty good about respecting people I disagree with, maybe, except my mic drops, but as far as going, I'm not saying that Shu was an idiot because I disagree with him. I'm saying that his behavior on the city, it was really scary. Like, he didn't seem to know what he was doing at all.
People say, well, how could these things be happening? How can the government allow these things to happen? Well, that's how it happens. People get in there that don't know the proper way to do things, and no one calls them out on it.
Truly.
Patricia Dillard, by the way.
Patricia Dillard. So she was the one that said, I want to make sure, whatever we got to do, I want to make sure that people aren't, it's only when people aren't home. So what they went ahead and voted. So now that throws everything off, right? Everybody's testimony was all about, you being home, right? I mean, the people that supported it, the people that opposed it, everybody was,
So everything was for naught.
Everything was for naught. And then, so it passed. They're going to draft this thing, and then they're going to vote on it. So it hasn't actually passed yet. They just agreed to get staff to author it, and that's where we're at. But, it's still, even though, so I think we took a lot of teeth out of it, like Alisha said, by showing up, putting pressure. We took a lot of teeth.
Didn't you say this is already passed in other cities in the county?
Well, not this, but the one where you have to have it locked up all the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
passed. Yeah, but this is the only one I know of where you have to have it locked up when no one's home.
Right.
Well, that's the verbal. That's not in writing.
That's not
we'll
in writing
see what they
yet.
come up with when it's actually in writing.
And are you going to get to go? Are they?
Oh yeah, we'll let everybody know you got to show up. But the other thing we got to show up for is and I thank you to everybody who showed up and made a difference. I know we have so many members, and people have things going on in their life, they can't show up. I totally understand. But those of you who showed up, who took 2-3 hours, who made the statement, thank you so much. You guys made a difference. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Are we going to continue to fight against it? Absolutely.
Did they ask where you lived?
No, they didn't. Mm-mm. They didn't ask where you lived. By the way, doesn't matter.
I know. You don't have to tell them.
You don't have to tell them. If you're at a city council meeting, they say, okay, well, where do you live? You say, well, I'm respectfully going to decline. I respectfully decline to tell you. Oh, no, you have to tell us where you live. No, I don't.
No, where you live.
Brown Act says you don't have to tell them.
Be at your house Thursday.
So, but this Tuesday, we've talked in the last couple shows about the county board and their proposal, their report. The staff, this is the listening sessions, right? All the statistics that they pulled up, the 70%, the 30%. By the way, I've talked about how this report is backfiring on the anti-gunners. Mm-hmm. One of the things I pointed out was in that report, they showed that over 92% of gun owners in San Diego, over 92% keep their guns locked up at all times. Now, what problem are we trying to solve?
Did you bring that up?
Oh, I did. I absolutely brought that up.
And what did they say?
Well, they can't say anything. They just
right.
got to sit there and listen.
That was a question.
But the Tuesday, staff is going to present the results of this. Could it lead to something? Yeah, it could lead to something. It could lead to, one of the recommendations that they make. It could lead to some kind of anti-gun, malarkey that they're trying to pass. So, San Diego County Gun Owners is going to be there and make a statement. Everyone who possibly can, 9 a.m. on Tuesday at the county building, the county admin building. Be there and let them know that you don't want any more gun laws. You don't want any more gun regulations. This is
you have plenty.
Have plenty. This is truly a mental health issue, as proven by their research, or a criminal issue, as proven by their research. So stop the criminals. Help the people who are going through a mental health crisis. Leave gun owners alone. Leave us alone. We're pillars of society.
Right.
So be there if you could. 9 a.m. Tuesday. I believe you can also Zoom in. Go to the county website and double check on that. But San Diego County Gun Owners is going to be there. We're going to give a statement, and wanted to let everybody know to please show up. La Mesa, we made a difference. Inarguably made a difference, like Alisha pointed out. So help us make a difference on the county level.
Are you expecting to make comments Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock?
Yeah, Tuesday, they'll say, agenda item, whatever, we're going to talk about this report, and then they'll take comments from the public, and that's when you get your 2, maybe 3 minutes to say whatever you want about that agenda item.
Okay.
And that's when you tell them, hey, no more gun regulations,
mm-hmm.
No more additional gun regulations. This is ridiculous. So that's what. So what do you think, Dave?
Oh, I wish I could have been there.
You're pickled tink.
Well, if we don't do this, just like, thank God the board at least was smart enough to realize that Shu was lost. I mean, really.
He was on the other foot.
It was on the other foot.
Well, so there's a lot of things that San Diego County Gun Owners does, right? And it's not all about lawsuits, and it's not always all about, our foundation. What we do is we try to get the right people elected. We find the resources to get the right people elected.
You messed up La Mesa.
No, we got Laura Lothian elected in La Mesa. And of course, elections have consequences. But, there's so much more that we do. When we show up and do this level of activism, people want to know, like, what can I do to help? We give them ways to help. Show up here, make this statement. Help people.
And for all you people out there that keep texting me and saying, how come you're not doing this and how come you're not doing that? Get off your butt and come to some of these things and speak up, because we can't change it without you folks chipping in. We can't do it all by ourselves.
That's right.
Schwartz can't do it. It's like a bad date.
Standing right there.
He's leaving us
I know.
for another date. Gun prom tickets are on sale. Just join San Diego County Gun Hunters. You'll have the time of your life. Second Amendment community at the Town and Country in Mission Valley. Get your fancy suit and dresses ready and join other like-minded people that believe in the right to self-defense. Second Amendment dinner is coming up on September 16th. Get your tickets now and reserve your spot for a night with great people, great food, drinks, and all for a great cause. Go to gunprom.com to get your tickets, buy a table, and bring your friends and family. That's gunprom.com and buy your tickets today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is your favorite segment, Sam the Gunman, which is Michael's nephew. He doesn't talk to him, so he never knows anything about any of the questions. And Sammy here.
Yeah, how are you guys?
Good, man. How are you?
Not bad.
How's the weather back there?
Hot and muggy.
Yeah, we're not doing too bad. We're in the 80s. No smog. I mean, no humidity. So we're doing good. So we'll go ahead and get right to this. I haven't even read the question either, so we'll give it to Alisha.
All right. Hey, Sam, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. We have a question from pretty far away today. Are you ready?
Sure, let's have it.
All right. So we have a question. It's from Ben from El Paso, and he wants to know what is the difference of and the benefits between open versus enclosed red dot optics?
Ben from El Paso, thanks very much for writing in. What are the benefits what are the differences between open and closed red dot optics? This is...
Well, it's difference and benefits.
Difference and benefits. Part of this, I guess you could say, comes down to personal preference, but what he's talking about are, if you look at, generally we're talking about pistol red dot sights here, though there are some open emitter reflex sights for long guns. If you think of like the RMR style, the RMR and all the similar optics that came after that, you have an objective lens up front, which is you need that to get your reticle, and you have an emitter in the back with an LED projecting that reticle, usually a dot, onto the lens. And because of the way the optics are aligned, it appears to be sort of this virtual dot at infinite distance to the human eye. Now, more recently, there have been a few offerings like the Aimpoint Acro and a few from HoloSun that fully enclose all the electronics and all the optics. So you have, much like on a rifle red dot sight, you have a rear lens, which is doing nothing. It's just a flat piece of glass. The advantage there being that it keeps out stuff like dust and moisture so that you have a little bit more resilient and rugged of an optic, and you can't get stuff on the back of the lens because it's fully sealed. So the advantage there is that they're better in sort of adverse conditions where you might get sand, dust, pocket lint, I guess, or moisture on the emitter and thus distort the dot.
Fantastic.
Excellente.
All right. So just a little bit more information. You're absolutely correct, of course. So just a little bit more that we have. This is the answer provided to us, by the way, that the main benefits of an open emitter is the lack of a hood and a second piece of glass, which cuts weight on a pistol's reciprocal slide. It also opens up your peripheral vision. The benefit of a closed emitter is that red dot optics work via an emitter, casting a red dot onto the lens in front of it. It's very simple, and all you really need is a single lens. However, without a hood and that second lens, anything that gets between the emitter and the lens can cause the optic to fail and eliminate your reticle from appearing on the lens. So whether it be rain, dust, or snow. So absolutely correct, of course.
Very good.
Do you like running a dot, or do you prefer old iron sights?
I'm pretty old-fashioned. I don't have optics on any of my handguns, but I am strongly considering buying another pistol that is optics ready. I have one in mind.
That's kind of where I am, too.
What do you have in mind?
I've been looking at the CZ P10C. I don't know if you guys can get those out in California. I don't think they're on the roster.
No.
But,
of course not.
They're very popular out this way, and you can get them for an excellent price these days. So I've been looking at one of those.
For the closest we can get here is going to be the PO1.
PO1's great.
It is. It's a great gun.
Fantastic pistol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, I'm kind of in the same boat that you are. I'm interested. I've tried some dots. It's just it's like an old dog, new tricks. I've worked with iron sights for so long. I'm having a hard time adjusting. It's a different mindset, a different technique.
I have only shot with one once, and I didn't do very well because there's a little bit of a learning curve to it. But I will say I am dot curious.
That's a good one. Dot curious. Yeah. Well, and you just, the thing of it is, it's like anything. You got to do it more than once to get comfortable with it. But the last thing you want to do is fork out the money and then find out later you don't like it.
Well, and when you get into the dot world, there's so many options. There's so many different variations. If you fork out the money,
colors.
Oh, the red and green. Some people's eyes pick up one color over another a little bit better. But you don't want to put the money into it until you know what exactly you want. And it's hard to know what you want until you have an opportunity to shoot it and you get into it. So fantastic. So what's your current blog about?
My most recent blog post is sort of more of a news post than an opinion piece, though it combines both. And it tells and comments a little bit on a very hair-raising story in Second Amendment news, actually fairly local to me. It's a story that comes out of Virginia about a U.S. Navy sailor who was convicted on charges of having unregistered machine guns and destructive devices. Now, the reason this is an issue is because he never actually possessed any machine guns or destructive devices. So he was basically convicted of and recently sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for possessing illicit items he never possessed and which the prosecution admits he did not possess. So if you want a little bit more information on that and kind of why this is a big deal, then you can go on the SDCGO blog and take a look at what I have to say.
I'm super curious now.
Yeah, now you got me curious, and I got to
trying to figure out how that can work.
Well, in our judicial system, nothing surprises us anymore. Let me tell you.
I will tell you this. Even after reading it and getting all the details, it still doesn't make much sense. It's a really wild story.
20 years of this guy's life has now been wasted.
Yeah, and he's a pretty young guy. He's, I think, 28 or 29 years old, so he'll be well into middle age by the time he gets out, unless this is successfully appealed.
Gosh, we can only hope. Well, that's a blog everybody needs to read. No doubt about it.
Absolutely.
All right, Sam. Well, that was awesome as usual. Thank you very much. And
well, thanks very much for having me on, as always.
Oh, we love it. We get more educated talking to you than most.
Absolutely. I have a question for you, Sam.
Oh, wait, hold it.
Whoa. Sure. So a big topic that we've had on the show for this week today has been a lot about the current situation that we have in regards to storage laws and things happening within our town. I'm curious, do you have any? What are the regulations, the storage laws that are out in your part of the world out there? What does that look like for you?
Some were proposed a few years ago, 2019, I believe, but did not pass. Virginia has some state-specific gun laws, some kind of weird ones, but as far as I'm aware, at least, no specific safe storage laws. Those were very narrowly defeated, but it is something that always gets proposed.
What you just said was pretty powerful. You just said not that you know of. And you know what? You know how many people walk around here where we have regulations.
Right.
You cross from one town to another and you're under a regulation. So many people don't even know. They're so convoluted. They're passed without a whole lot of knowledge sometimes.
Yep.
Right, yeah. So part of the reason I say that is because of a law was passed in Virginia that allows municipalities to set some of their own gun laws. Mm-hmm. So you can literally, like, for example, the city of Alexandria, if you're in Fairfax County, then you can carry concealed on public property. But if you cross over that line into Alexandria, you are committing a crime. Even though you have a valid Virginia concealed handgun permit, they've effectively banned concealed carry on all public property, including roads, sidewalks, parks, almost anywhere that isn't a home or place of business.
Wow. That's crazy.
Unreal.
Well, they're trying. I mean, they're just throwing as much mud against the wall as they can to see what's going to stick. All right,
Exactly.
Sam, thank you very, very much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for watching this episode from Gun Owners Radio. If you're watching mainstream media, you're not getting the truth about guns and the Second Amendment. Gun Owners Radio is the easiest way to stay on top of the Second Amendment fight, the fight for your self-defense rights. You can watch our live stream on YouTube every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, or if you're in San Diego, AM 1170, FM 96.1, The Answer. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform. Just do a search for Gun Owners Radio and you'll find our show. Don't forget to support our sponsors. Click on the links in the show notes and support the businesses that support your Second Amendment rights. Like and subscribe to help defend and restore the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.